Hi, I'm Julie, keeper of my home. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be sharing another what we eat in a week video. I haven't done one in a while, so I thought this would be kind of fun and inspiring as well. So on this first night, Joe fried up a bit of bacon. These are just pieces that are bite-sized. He removed them from the pan and added some Brussels sprouts that he had halved. Now he pan fried these up for about a minute, and then to change things up a bit, I added some Gala apples. I just chopped them up in 1/2-inch size cubes and added them to the Brussels sprouts, stirred them up a little bit, and then I put them in the oven to cook. I feel like every time we have Brussels sprouts, we always cook them the same way. Joe usually cooks them up with bacon, and we just eat them that way, a little salt and pepper, and call it good. So I told him, I said, he started frying the bacon, and I said, let's not do the same thing that we usually do. Let's change it up a bit. So I thought, I had some apples in the refrigerator, something that I usually always have in the fridge. And I just chopped those up and threw them in with it. I've never tried this before. It wasn't a recipe I found anywhere. But I thought it would kind of, apples and pork go well together. So I thought the apples and the bacon would be really good. And it's a mild flavor, so I thought it would kind of add to the Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts can be strong, so the sweetness of the apples I thought would really make it taste great. You should never be afraid to just change things up a bit instead of always going in your same normal routine. So while those were cooking, Joe pan fried some pork chops. Now these are just some pork chops that he dry rubbed with his favorite seasoning, Cosmos. It's the Honey Killer Bee seasoning. He has, between him and our youngest son, the two of them are always finding different seasonings that they love. Our youngest son loves to cook just as much as Joe, if not more. And he has 2 cabinets filled with seasonings, and he uses them all. And so he's always calling his father and saying, Dad, I've got this seasoning, this new seasoning I found. You've got to try it. It's just great. And of course, Joe will get it. He'll try it. And they go just back and forth on this. And I love it. So Joe's always working on a new favorite seasoning all the time, depending on what Andrew tells him about. So on this night, it was dry rubbed with the Cosmos seasoning. And I have to say that is a really good seasoning. I like it as well. Once those were finished, we just kind of put those aside. And when the Brussels sprouts were done, which was about the same time, we pulled those out of the oven and we added some Mission Fig balsamic vinegar. This was a gift from a friend. Thank you, Meredith. And I'm telling you, this stuff is so good. I wasn't sure what it was going to taste like, but I said, why not? We'll just throw it in. I love balsamic vinegar. So I added about a tablespoon, not too much. Mix that around until it was caramelized. Just kind of pan fried it until it caramelized up a bit. It didn't take long, maybe a minute, and it was ready. As a side with this meal, we had taken out of the freezer some of Joe's whole beans. I will link the video to our whole beans at the end of this video if you want to watch it. So just click on that at the end. We bake a lot of those in the summer because we like to throw them in the freezer for having all winter long. They are so good. And it's just a nice summer flavor, because you get that smoky flavor of those beans. It's just a nice reminder of summer in the middle of winter, which who doesn't love that? So that's a quick side that we had. And then we just plated everything. And as we plated it, we just sprinkled the bacon bits on top of the Brussels sprouts. And this was a very quick and easy meal. It didn't take any time to come together. It didn't take any special skills. Anybody could put this together. Simple is sometimes the best way you can do it. Just keep things simple. Okay, so on the next night, sorry, my voice is still not real great. but work with me here because I don't know. It's gone on for 2 weeks here, and at least I have a voice right now, because for 9 days I did not have anything more than a whisper. And I actually think the whisper was a little bit more than what my voice actually was. So I've written notes, so if you see me looking down here, it's what I'm looking at. On this next night, we made a very simple meal of just chicken, gravy, and asparagus. I'm not a big fan of potatoes, and so you'll notice that these meals we didn't have any potatoes. My husband, Joe, would love to have potatoes with every single meal. He was brought up on a potato farm. His dad's a retired potato farmer. And so his meals consisted of meat, potatoes every meal. You know, hash browns at breakfast, you had potatoes at lunch, you had potatoes at dinner, so it was a big staple in his house. Okay, so getting back to this meal, all I did was I took some homemade chicken broth, I thickened it a little bit with some arrowroot powder, and just made a gravy. Just flavored it with a little salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, whatever seasoning you want to put in it, just make a gravy. Doesn't have to be anything elaborate. And we put in the oven some chicken thighs. Some were just salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder, and some were Joe's favorite seasoning, the Cosmos Killer Bee seasoning. So a little bit of both, but you put on whatever seasoning you like. That's the great thing about making this, is you do you. Whatever you like, you can put on this. It's that simple. So the asparagus, all I did was pan fry that in a little bit of avocado oil. You can use olive oil or whatever, butter would add flavor. Whatever kind you want to put in there is fine. Coconut oil, whatever you want to cook it in. Just fry those up until tender, and a little salt, a little pepper, and that's it. We plated it. A little gravy on your chicken and your asparagus on the side. It was delicious and very simple. The next day, or the couple days later, we had this as leftovers, and we just made some hot chicken sandwiches. We used the gravy and the leftover chicken for that, and it was delicious. So you get more than one meal depending on how many pieces of chicken you make and how much gravy you make. It really stretches, which stretches your dollar. So on to the next meal. I'm gonna be totally honest. Shepherd's pie is not my favorite at all. Like, not. I'm not a potato fan, as I've said, and I'm not a corn fan. I don't know if you've noticed, there's not much corn in any of the meals that we make. But Joe loves to make his shepherd's pie with the burger on the bottom with the onions, and then the corn, and then the potatoes on the top, and sprinkle a little cheese. He does it, I think, more because that's how his mom always made it. But I'm not a fan. So I wanted to do something a little bit different with it. I know he wanted shepherd's pie, and I said, I'll make the shepherd's pie, but we're gonna change it up a little bit. Kept it simple, but it was so delicious. So all I did was I browned up some ground beef, little salt, pepper, little seasonings. I added chopped onion, zucchini, and carrots, and garlic. Now these were finely chopped because you really want your carrots to cook along with everything else, so really finely chop those. Then I added some mushrooms, and these are some organic jarred sliced mushrooms that we found at clearance at Walmart for 43 cents a jar. Yes, you heard me right, 43 cents. So we grabbed a case of those, and we also grabbed a case of the organic jarred whole mushrooms. They were on sale for 61 cents a jar. I could not believe it. Now these were all up to date. They weren't expired or anything, or they wouldn't have been able to keep them on the shelf. This was at Walmart, and I had asked why the price dropped. Like, it was a drastic drop in price. And they had said that they are clearing off that shelf to make room for new product. So these are the kind of things that you want to look for when you are shopping. When they're clearing off the shelves, when they're bringing in new product, a lot of the time what product they do have on the shelf, they drastically mark it down. And that is to your advantage because you're going to get a really great deal. So instead of buying 1 or 2 cans or jars of something, buy a whole case, because that whole case was like dirt cheap. There was 12 in a case. So, I mean, that was a huge steal on our part. So I recommend doing that when you're shopping. Okay, so now once the ground beef was all browned and everything was softened, I added a little bit of beef broth. This is just some homemade beef broth that I'd made, and I also added some Worcestershire in there and some tomato paste. Now I made the tomato paste from dehydrated, it's my tomato powder that let me get this right. I made the tomato paste using tomato powder that I had made by dehydrating tomato skins, because you can do that. Now, when I made our spaghetti sauce this fall, and our tomato soup base and all the tomato stuff that we canned for later on this winter, I roasted my tomatoes. Instead of dropping them in hot water to peel the skins off, I sliced them in half, I put them on a cookie sheet, and I roasted them. That way, the skins, literally, all I had to do was just pick the skins off just like this, pulled them right off, and I saved them, dehydrated them, and then turned them into powder. This is just one of the many ways that I like to use everything. It saves money and it saves time later on too, because you're not going shopping for all of these things. You're saving money because you're not shopping for all of these things, and it's just a quick grab on your shelf. And these are homestead grown tomatoes. These are from our garden. So hey, added bonus. I mean, you're getting something for nothing here except a little sweat equity, which I don't mind. I made a tomato paste with it. You just add a little bit of water with it, and added that to the meat mixture. Now, this is going to help thicken the mixture a little bit, and it also adds a lot of flavor. So you can use this tomato powder for soup, stews, roasts, eggs. You can use it in anything, really. Anything you like tomato taste in. Okay, so in a steamer, I also have some cauliflower steaming away, and this is going to replace the potatoes in the shepherd's pie. Now, as you can see, the meat mixture is nice and thickened, just a bit, and the liquid has been cooked off. This is just how you want it to look. Our cauliflower is also done, and we're going to mash this with a little bit of butter, some sour cream, and a bit of pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and some Parmesan cheese. Notice I did not add any salt because the parm is pretty salty, so I did not want to add any more salt on top of that. So we're gonna just dollop that on top of the meat mixture, spread it around just like you would your mashed potatoes, and sprinkle with a little bit more parm, and toss it in the oven and let it bake until it's nice and browned and bubbly. And one of the things that I love about this meal is that you're using the same pan that you fried cook the ground beef and your vegetables in. It's just a cast iron pan. My timer is going off, so you'll have to excuse me for a minute because I have rolls in the oven that I need to pull out. Okay, so they weren't quite brown enough, so I'm gonna put them back in for a couple more minutes, and you'll hear the timer go off here in a minute, and I'll go get those then. So, as I was saying, one of the things that I really love about this meal is that you're just using one pan. I love that because it's simple, it's less cleanup, and it's just quick and easy. And those are the kind of meals that I like to do. And I will also tell you that this is something that I highly recommend because it was delicious. It was very, very good. We had a couple of our grands over for dinner on that night, and they did not even notice that those were not potatoes, which, I don't know, in my opinion, that would be a great way to sneak in a few vegetables for your kids that don't typically like them. So it's just a nourishing, healthy, and delicious way to eat, and you have to try it. Okay, so on this next night, Joe is making a hamburger soup. This is one of his absolute favorite soups. He doesn't make it that often, and I don't know why, but he absolutely loves this soup. It's very easy to make. It doesn't take a lot at all. You know, soups usually are pretty easy in general to make, and I, again, like that it's a one-dish meal. So to a Dutch oven, he is adding some ground beef and carrots, onions, garlic, and mushrooms. And he's sauteing those until they're done. You want the hamburger cooked through. Now he's adding some fresh tomato paste to this. And by fresh, I mean he used our tomato powder to make the tomato paste. He's just taking the tomato powder and adding a little bit of liquid to it. And he's stirring it, adding to the consistency that he is looking for. So he just wants a paste. He's adding that to his ground beef mixture and stirring that all in. And again, that's going to thicken a little bit, and it's also going to add a lot of flavor. Now here's where you want to add some beef broth, and he's adding some homemade beef broth and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. That adds great flavor. Bring it to a boil. There goes my timer. Hold on just a minute. We'll hold that thought, and I'm going to pull those rolls from the oven. I am back, and we left off. Joe is adding noodles to his soup. Now you don't want to overdo adding the noodles because they're going to double in size. So you have to keep that in mind. You don't want them to overtake your soup because it is a soup, not a macaroni. Once you've added your macaroni noodles, add some tomato soup. I'm just gonna put that in there, give it a good mix, let it come to a nice simmer, and let it simmer until your noodles are cooked. Then that's it. You're done. It's all done. And Joe topped this with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, but you can top it with shredded cheddar or whatever cheese of your choice that you would like it, or go without the cheese. Either way, it's delicious. So you need to try this one. Now, again, I do want to say I love simple meals. I love, getting something on the table that didn't take all day to get there. We don't always have a lot of time. There's always stuff going on, and the simpler we can make it, the better it is. Now, adding seasonings to your food is really a good way to kick it up a notch. And like I did with the Brussels sprouts, I added the apples. Try adding something new. Getting dinner on the table does not have to be something that you dread. So don't overthink it. Don't make it more complicated than it has to be, because sometimes simple is the best way. Sometimes simple makes it seem like you took all day to make a meal when really it didn't take any time at all. Now, these meals that I showed you today, these all were very easy meals, quickly thrown together. None of them took very much time at all. And they didn't take a whole lot of effort either. And the ingredients, they were pretty inexpensive ingredients. Ground beef has been on sale at our store. I'm not sure what the prices are in your area. So we can get about a 10-pound bag of 80/20 ground beef for $2.99 a pound. It's not bad. So we like to buy it in bulk and then package it into 1-pound packages and throw it in the freezer, and that way we know exactly what we have. If we need 1 pound, we've got 1. If we need 2, we can grab 2. So buy your food when it's on sale. That makes a huge difference in the cost of a meal when you're putting it together. And we're all on a budget, so we don't want to break our budget. So shop the sales and get into those stores, because not all the sales are in the flyer. Some of the sales are in the store manager specials. So you want to go into your store every once in a while and just browse around and check out those sales. Like this week, we have a sale going on at our store right now. You can get chicken breasts for 69 cents a pound. Yeah, that's a heck of a buy. So if you have the freezer space, it's great meat to take off the bone and can it. So, there are the sales out there. So go out there and look. It doesn't have to be really expensive. So shop the sales. Now, if you're looking for more recipe or meal inspiration, at the end of this video, I will link a playlist where you can go and find my recipe and meal planning playlist and watch that and be inspired to make all kinds of different meals. So thank you for joining me. I make videos every week on simple living, homestead grown, and all things home.